Welcome to the third in a series of presentations by John Klungness concerning forestry in the Bayfield area. The first two were on logging and reforestation. This presentation will cover education opportunities available in Wisconsin in forestry and forestry-related careers. John was born in Superior, Wisconsin, to Norwegian immigrants. In fact, he spent his freshman year of high school in Norway, where he got the opportunity to assist his grandfather in doing traditional river logging. John graduated in 1961 from the University of Wisconsin with a degree in chemical engineering. He spent the next 8 years working in the paper industry. John is a former research chemical engineer with the USDA Forest Service Forest Products Laboratory in Madison, Wisconsin. He published over 80 peer-review papers and holds 2 patents. John will outline educational opportunities in Wisconsin for forestry and forestry-related careers.
Thank you for the introduction. The title of my talk is Bayfield Logging and Forestry, History and Careers. This video has been sponsored jointly by BHA, Bayfield Heritage Association, and Bayfield Community Education Foundation. The talk is divided into 2 parts of small background where I talk about the logging, followed by forestry, and then into education for careers connected with forestry at UW-Madison, UW-Stevens Point, and the College of Menominee Nation. The big logging, where we cut over all the old growth, took place from about 1870 to 1920. In 50 years, we wiped out essentially 100% of the old growth forest. And these show the sawmills and logging camp in the Bayfield Peninsula. The triangles are the sawmills, and the small triangles not filled in are the logging camps. And up to about 1881, there was no railroad, so the lumber had to be shipped by boat, the Sioux Canal, down to Chicago. That was the main processing center. It was huge. And Chicago used some of the wood, but it mainly was shipped out to cities like Tulsa and St. Louis and Kansas City and Topeka, which really had no wood and needed the wood for building the city. And of course, all the ranches and farmers around it also needed wood. And here you see them getting out the wood very quickly. They're hauling in the logs by oxen and then putting them on narrow gauge railroads to get them to the sawmills. And here you see the mainline railroad coming up from Minneapolis to Ashland, all the way up to Bayfield, and then from there connected to short line or narrow gauge railroads. And then Minneapolis became the big center. Chicago is not the big center anymore, and they became a huge center for distributing lumber. About 1920, the cutover was done. All the old growth was gone. The meaning was that they were going to open this up for farmland, but not all the land was suitable for farming. And I can remember reading a long time ago, W.H. Auden saying, "A culture is no better than its woods," and it stuck with me. And our woods was in bad shape. It needed help. Right in the beginning of the Depression in 1933, the CCC was established, and the main thing was tree planting. 2 billion trees planted in the 9 years that the CCC operated. It was done mainly by hand. And in Wisconsin, although they had many other projects, tree planting was the biggest project in Wisconsin. And here you see the first troop coming to the first CCC camp in Wisconsin, Camp Brinks, just a little bit east of Washburn. They planted in any government lands, national forest, state forest, county forest, Indian forest, up at Red Cliff. And Menominee, they didn't need to plant because they never cut in the Menominee Reservation. This is a prime example of very, very good management. Menominee Reservation has been recognized by the United Nations, by presidential awards, and they've managed this forest for over 150 years. And they had over 230,000 acres of forest land. They cut 15 million board feet annually. They do millwork, molding, custom millwork, veneer logs, pulpwood, byproducts. So they add value. And Chief Oshkosh of the Menominee Nation said a long time ago, 150 years ago, he said, "Start with the rising sun and work towards the setting sun, but take only the mature trees, the sick trees, and the trees that have fallen. When you reach the end of the reservation, turn and cut from the setting sun to the rising sun, and the trees will last forever. And that's turned out more or less to be true. Very, very forward thinking. They use modern forest science connected with their traditional beliefs. They've preserved the ecosystem. It's been profitable. It's been very healthy. They will save trees that have no commercial value, and they've been proven out to be right. This is a very smart thing to do. And here you see some of the products they got: rough sawn lumber, veneer logs, etc. And they practice silviculture. According to the Menominee Reservation, the silviculture is the art and science of controlling the establishment, growth, composition, health, and quality of forests to meet the goals and strategies for the Menominee people, and has been very, very, very successful. Red Cliff is also starting a forestry program. They have a much smaller and much more recent forest. What they've done is recently, they reviewed timber harvest proposals within the reservation property. They've had several cuts in the last couple of years. They've been establishing the Frog Bay National Park, and they participate in training for the forestry program. So they did a survey of the members of the tribe, the Red Cliff tribe. And there's three things they want to do. They want to preserve the forest, they want to reacquire land, and they want to institute a forest management plan. And this summer, there was a summer youth internship program. There's about half a dozen students, high school students, and they will work 32 hours a week plus a salary, and they will get some forestry and wildlife management learning. And now we go to the second part, Wisconsin Forestry and Forest Products Education. In Wisconsin, we have two universities, the University of Wisconsin-Madison, University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point. And Wisconsin, you can go in forestry from a bachelor's to a master's to a doctoral. To get into forestry, you essentially need a bachelor's degree. And this degree from Madison is recognized by the Society of American Foresters, the SAF, and that SAF accreditation is required for many forestry positions. And then bachelor's, of course, is the primary degree to enter the profession. It's a great fit if you're interested in resource management, conservation, sustainability, environmental policy, ecology research, remote sensing, and GIS. It's a close-knit degree program. You get to know everybody in it. You'll be working with data, problem solving, field work. You have technical problems to solve, working in a laboratory. The Forestry Club, they go to the Arboretum and cut Christmas trees and sell them every year to raise money for some projects. And here you see the Wildlife Society, where they're building a pen for some of the elks that they're reestablishing in Wisconsin. Some quick facts. This is from the Occupational Outlook Handbook. In 2020, the median pay was $64,000 per year. And typical entry-level education is bachelor's degree. Number of jobs nationwide in 2020 was 39,000. It's growing 7%. Employment change between 2020 and 2030, that decade, is 2,900 jobs opening up. And one thing that they've got down at the University of Wisconsin-Madison is just, it's a gold mine, especially for Indigenous people. Indigenous student services. You can get mentoring, you can get tutoring, and just as an aside, when I was going through chemical engineering, it was a very hard program, very competitive, and they threw so much at you, didn't have much time. And a colleague of mine, he was playing varsity football. He was in the upper 5 or 10% of the class in grade point average, and I was just amazed that he could do that. And it turned out he was getting tutoring. That's a big, big help. So if you can get that, that's just amazing. And if you get mentoring, you go down there, you want to be a forester, you might end up something completely different. You might end up as a doctor, or a lawyer, a scientist, just anything. So it's a very good service, and if I would go down there, I'd definitely get into that. University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, they've got two programs, the paper science program and the chemical engineering program. Now, the chemical engineering program is focused on pulp and paper, and the paper science and engineering specialization of chemical engineering, the same type of work as the chemical engineers, and is focused on pulp and paper industry. And here, the occupational handbook, you can see this. If you get a chemical engineering degree, it's a little harder to get, but it's worth a lot more. You start out at $108,000 as of 2020, and you need a bachelor's degree. Number of jobs, 26,000. It's growing at 9%, and employment change from 2020 to 2030 is 2,400 jobs. So there is no real career pathway. You can start out process engineering, you can go into design, you can become a professor, an attorney, a consultant, and people do switch back and forth. It's very flexible. So we do have a lot of opportunities. Your career, you'll almost always get into at least one summer internship where you'll be making from $22 to $27 per hour. And entry level from Stevens Point is $74,500. This was from 2021 and 22. And they have a strong student community. They have, over on the left, you can see the American Institute of Chemical Engineering Student Chapter, AICHE. They have a Society of Women Engineers, and the Technical Association of Pulp and Paper Industry has a chapter there. And any one of those is very, very valuable, very helpful. And here you see at Stevens Point, they're very practical. They got paper testing laboratory, all just set up perfectly. Process engineering laboratory. Over on the right, you see a small paper machine, and behind them, they have the large paper machine. And they do stock prep there. The unit operations that they have on the paper machine, you can duplicate them on a small scale. And in addition, the College of Menominee Nation, they say we walk with students every step of the way. They've got about 800 students. Although they don't offer a forestry degree, they do offer a degree in sustainable agriculture, and they have about a half a dozen courses that are related to forestry. They've got forestry in wildlife and internships, special topics you can sign up for. They work in close cooperation with the Forest Products Laboratory in Madison, and that's operated by the Forest Service. I spent 36 years working there, and they really like to get interns. And here you see Christopher Caldwell. He's the president of the College of Menominee Nation. He was an FPL summer intern. He's currently completing his PhD program at University of Wisconsin-Madison. And summer internships are a valuable step in your education. If you get down to Forest Products Laboratory, you'll work with a researcher on a summer research program. But what they're trying to do is to get you to become a researcher at Forest Products Laboratory. But also they'll have seminars, and the Forest Service is huge, vast, varied jobs there. And they'll come and tell you about other jobs that are possible for you to enter into. You may want to be a statistician or a biologist or a researcher in some special field you're interested in. So to sum up then, I've given you background in logging, what happened up here, logging forestry, and where you can get an education to enter into forestry-related careers. Thank you.